What's going on, guys? I missed a video yesterday. I didn't have a chance to put a video out, but yesterday Bitcoin hit a new 52-week high. It got all the way up to $50,000, a price we haven't seen since 2021 in December. And now Bitcoin, along with the miners, are cooling down a bit. We did just get some CPI data. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over Bitcoin on the chart and a couple of different miners, some levels that I'm looking out for. So let's get started on this video. If you guys like these videos, you know what to do. And first off, let's look over what's going on with CPI. Now I'll leave this article down below for you, but it'll kind of catch you up on what's going on, what happened Monday, and what's going on today with CPI. But essentially, we got our CPI data. It missed expectations and Bitcoin broke back under 50,000. And taking you over to CPI, you can see the year-over-year numbers, and we are just having a really difficult time breaking under 3%. And you can see that we've been range bound since somewhere around the end of 2023. We went from a 4% CPI down to a 3%, however it rebounded back up to 3.7, and we've just been range bound from 3.7 to 3%. The forecast was a 2.9%. If we would have received that, perhaps Bitcoin, the miners, everything, the risk on assets could have kept rallying. However, CPI is having a very hard time getting back under 3%. I think the market seeing twos for the first time would have breathed a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, that's not the case this read. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. Now, do you think the Fed is going to cut rates because of CPI, because of PPI, and other inflation data metrics coming down, or will it be from something breaking, such as the banks, such as autos? And remember, back in 2008, we announced a bailout to GM, Chrysler, because, and I quote, GM and Chrysler warned they faced bankruptcy and the loss of 1 million jobs. My worry is that something breaks before CPI gets to a sufficient level for the Fed to cut rates. So my question to you is, do you think the Fed's going to cut rates due to CPI coming down, or due to something very important breaking, i.e. banks, autos, real estate market, jobs? I personally think at this point it's sort of a coin flip. And more of these CPI prints that we're not coming in line with expectations for, the more likely something is going to break and cause the Fed to have to cut from that. But let me know what you think is coming first. I do think regardless of this CPI read, we are still getting rate cuts. However, they might come a little later than expected. But make no mistake, we are getting some rate cuts this year. Next up, I want to go over a Bitcoin, and then we're going to look over a couple of different miners. I'll give you my thoughts, what I'd be looking to buy. And looking at Bitcoin, we're cooling down from getting all the way up to 50,300 roughly. And that's okay. We were due to cool down after this much of a run, after becoming this overbought on the RSI. It's definitely time to cool down a bit. Now, for those looking to buy Bitcoin, I know some of you are extremely patient and want to wait until the 30,000s or something. Some of you are not as patient and would be happy to buy starting at 45 or so. And some of you see the big picture and just continue to DCA regardless. Now, I can personally see Bitcoin coming down towards 47,000. At that point, if you're looking long term, I think it would be a great time to start picking some up. And I think another great point to buy if we do get there would be 45,000. I could see us retracing some of these gains, coming back to 45,000, using that as a support before bouncing up, before also potentially using this ascending line that we have utilized as support before and resistance before. But if you believe in the long term of Bitcoin, if you believe Bitcoin is going to be substantially higher by the end of 2024, towards the middle of 2025, etc., I don't think you need to be too patient here. I think any of these red days are great times to just buy a little bit, but keep some cash on the side to be ready to buy some more if we do fall a bit more. You want to keep your portfolio somewhat flexible, and while it's easier said than done, you definitely want to keep some money on the side so you can buy some cheaper Bitcoin or some cheaper Bitcoin miners. But like I said, I do think Bitcoin would be a good buying opportunity, a good time to add in at 47 to 45,000. I personally don't expect us breaking under 40,000. And we might not see under 40,000 potentially ever again, or potentially in the next bear cycle. But I've got another question for you. Where do you think Bitcoin's bottom next cycle will be? Do you think we'll come all the way down to 15,000 like last cycle low, or even lower? Or do you think the bottom ends up being potentially 30,000 in the future? Or do you think we're at lower prices than we'll ever see in the next bear market low? There is a possibility we might not see under 50,000 in the next cycle low. And looking at Bitcoin's history is every cycle gets higher highs and higher lows. Newer prices we've never seen on Bitcoin in the peak of the bull cycle, and higher lows at the bottom of the bear market cycle compared to last cycle. Our last bear market low was roughly 15,000 back in 2022. Back in December 2018, our low was roughly $3,000. And back in the low of 2015, Bitcoin was only $150. So, in my opinion, while we're so early on this bull market, I do think now is still the time to be loading up, even though we've gone up so much from $15,000. There is a possibility, even at this level, that we never see these prices again a couple years from now in our next crypto winter. So to me, Bitcoin is still cheap considering where we can go in 2024, the rest of 2024 anyways, and through 2025. And I'd definitely be more of a buyer here, especially if you weren't able to load up in 2022 and 2023, because I know there are people that don't have built out positions yet, but it's definitely better to be buying here than potentially buying new all-time highs in a couple months. So while it is good to be patient, look for pullbacks, just don't be too patient because those pullbacks can quickly be bought up, and then the FOMO train keeps rolling. But Bitcoin's still looking great. We're continuing to create yearly highs, and that's very bullish for Bitcoin. But it's not very surprising we're cooling off a bit, and that's totally healthy. There's no need to panic. Bitcoin literally just hit 52-week highs, and the bull trend will continue. But things don't just go straight up and to the right. There are going to be consolidations. There are going to be pullbacks along the way. We were heavily overbought here on the RSI, and we are also a little too far away from the 50, and also I'd say the 200 moving average. We are due to cool down a little bit and let that RSI level out, get more towards neutral, as well as getting closer to the moving averages. But I do think this is an instance of going too far too fast. Maybe if we would have gotten some favorable CPI, Bitcoin could have kept running a little bit more. But during times like these, after a huge run, you want to be cautious. You want to look for that pullback and start adding there, not necessarily adding into new yearly highs. Now, I do want to talk about some of the Bitcoin miners. They are at extremely different levels. We have some near yearly highs, whereas some are still kind of floundering around. And one example of a flounderer is Btbt. We bottomed out here in early February at about 230, ran all the way up to about 330, and now we're starting to cool down a bit. There's a possibility we fill our gap down towards 275. I think even here is a great add for Btbt. And it is still down roughly 40% from its highs. And I do expect Btbt to see some hype as Ethereum rallies. And also, in their last mining update, they reported their first revenue from AI. So hopefully we see that revenue growth there, along with their Bitcoin mining and Ethereum staking rewards. But I do think Btbt is an exciting and interesting stock. It's a play on the Bitcoin miners, it's a play on Ethereum, and now it's potentially a play on AI. But I do like them down here at this price. It's possible we fill this gap, but I think even here is a great time to add into Btbt. It is still down considerably from its peak back at the end of December. Looking at CleanSpark, a drastically different chart. They reported a profit in their last earnings, and that's big news. Wall Street ran with this one. The only thing is, you gotta be a bit cautious here. It has ran quite dramatically over the last couple of days. We had like a 30% up day the other day, and CleanSpark just kept running with no end in sight. However, be cautious, we are pretty heavily overbought. We do have a gap to fill here in the 1050 area. And if we start heading down towards it, I think CleanSpark would be a great buy starting in the 12 area all the way down to 1050 if you're looking for that gap play. But CleanSpark compared to Btbt is at new 52-week highs. So I definitely feel a little more comfortable with Btbt compared to CleanSpark, kind of in uncharted territory, a little bit overbought, maybe due to pull back a little bit, maybe due to try to fill this gap. But in the end, there's a lot of excitement here. This is the first miner to post a profit. In my opinion, you're looking at the best miner, the best all-in cost, some of the fastest hash rate growth in the industry. And I think looking at these Bitcoin miners purely as a company, CleanSpark is that company you want to be in. However, just realize we're a bit extended here. We didn't really establish any levels, we just ran and kept running. So I would be cautious. I would look for some pullbacks here to potentially add. Although, if you're looking at this company multiple years out, if you're looking at the long-term success of this company, I don't think there's a better one to be in. So I'd say it's still a good DCA from here. And in my opinion, when you're looking back from 2025, from late 2024, you're going to see these prices and wish you even bought here. But for those of you trying to be a little more patient, on the more patient side, look for a potential gap fill. We are definitely a bit overextended. Next up, Iris Energy. This is kind of in between Btbt and CleanSpark in terms of the chart. It's had a little better recovery than Btbt, but it hasn't ran as much as CleanSpark in terms of new 52-week highs. We're roughly down 30% from its recent top. And along with the other miners, Iris Energy also has a gap to potentially fill from this 550 area all the way down to 5. If we do get down there, I think that would be a great buying opportunity for Iris. And just know that over here, while we can have a little pop, while we can run a bit, just know that we're more closer to overbought than oversold. And if Bitcoin continues cooling off along with the other miners, Iris is going to cool down, potentially test its 50 MA. Otherwise, come down and fill this gap, which would be a great opportunity to add to some Iris. But be cautious with this one. They are reporting earnings on Thursday. They're expecting roughly a $38 million quarter, and they're expecting a positive EPS. So if they follow through with these estimates, if we do see a positive EPS, you could potentially expect a run similar to what CleanSpark saw. So definitely keep an eye on Iris Energy, but be cautious around earnings. If they miss these estimates, they could definitely cool down a bit. But let me know what Bitcoin miners you're watching out there. I just thought I'd show you these three because they have somewhat different charts, and I do like all three of these. I do like BTBT. I think it's a good play on Ethereum and AI. I also like Iris Energy. I think they're pretty undervalued compared to some of the other miners. They're not as overextended as other miners. And also Iris Energy gives you some diversification into Bitcoin mining out of the USA. And CleanSpark just continues to kill it. As a company, you couldn't ask for any better. But just know that on the chart, you're in a bit of a risky territory here, and we could definitely cool down a bit before going on our next leg up. But all three miners I do expect to do very well in the Bitcoin bull run, and this is just the beginning of it. But thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time.